Most people grab the same bottle on autopilot, never once questioning what's actually in it. The milk syrup market has quietly split into two categories: products built on real ingredients and products that are sugar delivery systems with a label. Some led with high fructose corn syrup as the first ingredient. Others have nothing artificial in the bottle at all. We're ranking 8 milk syrup brands from worst to best, because not every bottle on that shelf deserves your money. Life's too short to keep pouring flavorless sugar water into perfectly good milk. Hit subscribe because we're about to fix that. Brand 8, Bosco Chocolate Syrup. Bosco has been on shelves since 1928, nearly a century of chocolate syrup, which sounds impressive until you taste the modern formula. Multiple ownership changes and quiet formula revisions have turned a once beloved brand into a product coasting entirely on name recognition. The execution hasn't meaningfully evolved, and neither has the quality, except downward. Here's the thing: what you actually get is a thick, gloopy consistency that clumps in cold milk and resists stirring. The bottle design is outdated, making portion control nearly impossible, and the pour is uneven at best. The taste is aggressively sweet with a one-dimensional cocoa note buried somewhere beneath the sugar. There's a slightly waxy chemical aftertaste that lingers on the back of the tongue long after the glass is empty. The real kicker is the price, roughly $6 for 16 ounces, putting it in mid-range territory for a formula that hasn't earned it. Corn syrup is the first ingredient. Vanillin, the synthetic version of vanilla, substitutes for the real thing. Reviewers describe it as watered-down cocoa flavor, and not what I remembered. Many buy it on nostalgia and are immediately disappointed. Bosco survives almost entirely on the muscle memory of shoppers who remember it fondly from mid-century. Television commercials. Multiple consumers have flagged a noticeable taste change post-2010. Longtime fans say the current product tastes nothing like the original. They're banking on you reaching for the familiar without stopping to ask why it tastes different now. Bosco is a time capsule that forgot to preserve the good parts. You're paying a mid-range price for a century-old brand that stopped caring about the product somewhere along the way. But at least Bosco has a flavor. What comes next is closer to flavored water with ambitions. Brand 7, Nestle Nesquik Chocolate Syrup. Nesquik traces back to 1948 as Nestle Quick Powder, and the syrup format arrived later as a convenience extension, rebranded globally in 1999 when the bunny mascot went worldwide. The syrup format is a significant step down from the powder. It's thinner, less flavorful, and arguably the least chocolatey product on this entire list. The bunny on the label is doing a lot of work that the formula isn't. What you get is a watery consistency that pours like chocolate-tinted water rather than syrup. It blends quickly in cold milk. The thinness helps with that, but leaves almost no visible color depth in the glass. The taste is mild, sweet, and almost offensively one-dimensional. The cocoa flavor is faint. This tastes more like a chocolate-adjacent sugar beverage than an actual syrup. And get this, a standard 2-tablespoon pour adds 24 grams of sugar to your glass. That's roughly 27% of your recommended daily intake, added to milk that already contains its own natural sugars. Sugar is the first ingredient. The formula contains modified cornstarch, carrageenan, and both natural and artificial flavors listed together, meaning the chocolate taste is at least partly manufactured. Nesquik syrup is a brand extension play. Nestle knows parents recognize the name from the powder, and familiarity is all the selling that needs to happen. Children want sweetness, not complexity, and Nesquik delivers that on a budget. They're banking on brand inertia. You bought Nesquik powder as a kid, you buy Nesquik syrup as a parent, and the formula barely needs to be good. If water had a chocolate phase, this would be it. Nesquik syrup is chocolate-flavored sugar water with a marketing budget and very little else. Up next, a brand with plenty of flavor, just not for this application. Brand 6, Smucker's Chocolate Fudge. Syrup Smuckers was founded in 1897 in Orville, Ohio, built on fruit preserves before extending into toppings and syrups as a category adjacency. The problem is immediate. This product was engineered for ice cream sundaes and is being sold in a squeeze bottle that implies it works in milk. It does not. Smucker's is ice cream's best friend showing up to a milk party completely overdressed. What you get is a thick, dense, fudge-like consistency. Genuinely closer to warm fudge sauce than a pourable syrup. In cold milk, it sinks straight to the bottom and sits in a dense clump that refuses to stir out. The taste in isolation is rich and sweet. In milk, that fudge-heavy sweetness becomes cloying quickly. It coats the tongue rather than blending into the drink, and leaves an artificial vanilla aftertaste that follows you through the entire glass. What makes this particularly frustrating is the caloric density. Approximately 14 grams of sugar per 2 tablespoons serving at roughly 100 to 110 calories. Corn syrup leads the ingredient list. Artificial flavors listed without specification. Reviewers overwhelmingly praise it as an ice cream topping while specifically flagging it as too thick to mix and it leaves a gummy residue in milk. You also end up using more product per glass than the label implies, which wipes out the cost advantage. Smucker's is using a trusted pantry name to sell into an adjacent category, and the squeeze bottle packaging implies a versatility the fudge formula cannot structurally deliver. They're selling ice cream topping to milk drinkers and letting the label do the convincing. Technically chocolate, technically a syrup, technically neither of those things once it hits cold milk. Smucker's doesn't belong in this ranking, and somewhere in the product development meeting, someone probably knew that. Brand 5, Hershey's chocolate syrup. Hershey's has produced chocolate syrup since the 1920s and remains the best-selling chocolate syrup in the United States by market share. It lands in the middle of this list because it does everything adequately and almost nothing well. The reliable C student of the chocolate syrup world, never impressive, never catastrophic, always just there. What you get is a smooth, pourable consistency that mixes reasonably well in cold milk with minor settling. The squeeze bottle is practical and clean. The taste is sweet, familiar, and instantly recognizable, but flat. The high fructose corn syrup formula makes the sweetness feel processed rather than genuine, and there's a faint chemical edge that sits just beneath the surface of that familiar taste. The real kicker is the ingredient list. High fructose corn syrup is the first ingredient. Corn syrup is the second. Actual sugar doesn't appear until position 5. The formula also contains polysorbate 60, mono and diglycerides, xanthan gum, and vanillin. A highly processed product dressed in comfortingly familiar packaging. Reviewers describe it consistently as the default, not a compliment, not an insult. The phrase tastes more like nostalgia than actual chocolate appears repeatedly in food forums. But here's where it gets tricky. Hershey's makes a Simply 5 variant with a completely clean ingredient list. That product exists. They chose not to make it the standard. That tells you everything about what this formula actually is. Hershey's doesn't win on quality, it wins on distribution and 4 generations of refrigerator door placement. They're banking on inertia being stronger than curiosity. Hershey's is what you pour when you've stopped asking questions. It works, it doesn't impress. And that's been enough to make it the #1 seller for over 100 years. If this is already saving you from a bad pour, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. Brand 4, Fox's You-Bet. Chocolate syrup. Fox's You-Bet was founded in Brooklyn, New York in 1895 by Herman Fox, making it one of the oldest continuously produced chocolate syrups in America. It is the essential ingredient in the classic New York egg cream, a drink built on milk, seltzer, and this syrup. And that cultural specificity gives it a legitimacy that mass market brands cannot manufacture at any budget. What you get is a smooth, slightly thinner consistency than Hershey's that pours, cleanly without clumping. It mixes well in cold milk and delivers something the bottom 4 brands consistently fail to provide. A distinct, genuine cocoa flavor without artificial edges. The sweetness is noticeably more restrained than any mass market brand on this list. That restraint is the point. When the sugar steps back, the chocolate actually comes forward. At approximately 10 grams of sugar per tablespoon, it's the lightest sugar load among the corn syrup-based brands here. No HFCS, no emulsifiers. The formula is cleaner than Hershey's, even if it still contains some artificial flavor. At roughly $6 to $7.50 for 22 ounces, it costs more per ounce than standard Hershey's, and earns every cent of that premium in flavor. You-Bet doesn't try to compete with Hershey's on a national scale. It owns a cultural niche that no marketing campaign could replicate. The egg cream connection is real and specific, and it gives the brand a credibility rooted in genuine culinary history. Reviews split sharply between New Yorkers who consider it the only syrup and everyone else who finds the less sweet profile briefly surprising before appreciating it. You Bet is the syrup that doesn't need to shout because it already has a Wikipedia page. If you can find it, buy it. The restraint and sweetness alone makes it worth the search. Brand 3, Hershey's Simply 5. Chocolate syrup. Hershey's Simply 5 launched around 2014 to 2015 as a direct response to the clean label movement, and the branding couldn't be more deliberate. The name is the ingredient count. 5 ingredients. No HFCS. No artificial flavors. No emulsifiers. This is what Hershey's standard formula should always have been. The consistency is slightly thicker than the original, but still pourable and mixable in cold milk. Smooth without any of the gloopiness that derailed Smucker's. The taste difference from the standard Hershey's is real and immediate. The absence. A high fructose corn syrup makes the sweetness taste cleaner. It doesn't have that flat processed edge. Organic cocoa delivers a slightly more complex, slightly earthy chocolate note that the original formula never gets close to. At 11 grams of sugar per tablespoon, the number looks similar to the original. But organic cane sugar behaves differently on the palate than HFCS, and reviewers consistently confirm they can taste it. Amazon buyers describe it as what Hershey's should always have been, and the flavor feels more honest. The premium over standard Hershey's is roughly $150 to $250 per bottle. Most reviewers find that justified within the first pour. The most telling part is what this product's existence reveals. Hershey's knows how to make a clean, genuinely flavored chocolate syrup. They choose not to for their flagship product. Simply 5 is a defensive clean label move to retain label-reading consumers, not a value statement. They're selling 2 versions of the same concept and hoping most consumers never compare them side by side. Simply 5 is Hershey's telling you quietly what the original was never supposed to be. It earns its place in the top 3 and makes the standard formula look worse for existing. And if you're finding this ranking useful, hit the like button. It really helps the channel cut through the noise. Brand 2, Torani Chocolate Sauce. Torani was founded in San Francisco in 1925 by Italian immigrants Rinaldo and Isilda Torri. It built its name on Italian-style flavored syrups before becoming a global cafe standard through the 1990s coffee shop boom. The chocolate sauce crossed into home milk applications through barista culture, and the professional pedigree shows in every pour. What you get is a smooth, consistent, silky flow that mixes reliably in both hot and cold applications. This formula was engineered for professional mixing, which means it performs at home with the same reliability it delivers behind a cafe counter. The taste is clean and genuinely chocolatey. Cane sugar sweetness that doesn't overwhelm, with cocoa coming through clearly and without artificial edges. It's noticeably less sweet than any mass market brand on this list, and that restraint makes every glass taste like an intentional beverage rather than an afterthought. At roughly 10 to 11 grams of sugar per tablespoon from a cleaner source than anything ranked below it, and with no HFCS or artificial stabilizers in the formula, Torani occupies a different tier entirely. At $8 to $11 for 16.9 ounces, it carries the second highest price on this list. But reviewers consistently note that less product is needed per glass to hit genuine flavor, which softens that premium meaningfully. Food blogs describe it as the first syrup that makes chocolate milk taste intentional. Reddit coffee communities recommend it routinely as the obvious first. Step up from mass market brands. Torani rode the specialty coffee wave and built credibility in a professional context that grocery store branding cannot replicate. Adults who take their beverages seriously recognize the difference immediately. They're not selling nostalgia, they're selling quality, and the formula backs it up. Torani is the syrup that makes you wonder why you ever use anything else. It's not cheap, but it's the first brand on this list that treats chocolate milk as something worth making properly. Brand 1, Ghirardelli Chocolate Sauce. Ghirardelli is one of the oldest continuously operating chocolate companies in the United States, founded in San Francisco in 1852 by Italian chocolatier Domenico Ghirardelli. The chocolate sauce is an extension of that premium chocolate identity. And unlike everything else on this list, it was made by a company that has spent over 170 years caring specifically about how chocolate tastes. What you get is rich, silky, and full-bodied, noticeably thicker than any other brand here, but in the way that good chocolate is thick, not in the gloopy, unmixable way that derailed Smucker's. It blends beautifully in warm milk and with brief stirring in cold. The taste is in a different category entirely from everything ranked below it. Genuine, complex chocolate flavor with a subtle creaminess from real dairy cream in the formula. The cocoa depth is real, natural vanilla flavor rather than synthetic vanillin. This is the only product on this list that tastes like premium chocolate rather than a chocolate-flavored confection. The ingredient list confirms what the taste tells you. Real cream is the third ingredient. Natural vanilla flavor replaces vanillin. There's no HFCS, no artificial colors, no emulsifiers. The list is the shortest and most recognizable of any brand tested. At $7 to $9.50 for 16 ounces, it carries the highest per ounce cost here. And reviewers across every platform describe it as worth it without hesitation. The real deal. Closest thing to homemade. Once you switch, you can't go back. The only consistent complaint is that the bottle is too small. Ghirardelli doesn't compromise on ingredients because it built its entire identity on premium chocolate. Lowering the formula would directly contradict what the name means. This is what happens when a chocolate company makes a chocolate product, rather than a food conglomerate producing a chocolate-flavored commodity. The target is quality-conscious adults who have tasted the difference and stopped accepting good enough. Ghirardelli earns its shelf space every single pour. It's the one brand on this list that treats chocolate milk as something worth the effort. And you can taste exactly that in every glass. What this ranking ultimately shows is that the milk syrup aisle rewards brands that kept things honest and punishes the ones that didn't. At the bottom, Bosco and Nesquik coast on nostalgia, built on corn syrup and artificial shortcuts. At the top, Ghirardelli puts real cream, real cocoa, and natural vanilla into the bottle. The gap between them isn't subtle. The best milk syrup is the one that doesn't make you read the ingredients twice and then reach for something else. Hit subscribe if this changed how you'll shop the syrup aisle, and drop a comment telling us which ranking you think we got wrong.